Hi children, good morning. Mrs. Preeti Thakkar, back to you with Standard 7th, Chapter 6, Administrative System and Architecture during Medieval Age. Kasam meets Lok Dairo, a group of folk singers, was organized in the village square that is Chowk, and the entire village had gathered there at night. Small children had already taken their positions in the front row. Patriotic songs were also being sung at Lok Dairo, along with the folk songs. Utsav liked Palya recitals songs sung in the honor of Matris very much. The next day, he asked his grandfather, Grandfather, what does Palya mean? His grandfather told him that a palya is a memorable commemorating the heroes. It is a tribute to martyrs who have sacrificed their lives while protecting and ensuring the welfare of the people. These palyas are worshipped during festivals and songs are sung at homage to these martyrs. This is the culture of our country. Utsav and his friends requested his grandfather, Grandfather, please enlighten us about the culture of our country. Wait, said Grandpa. He went in and came back with some pictures. He then asked Utsav, Can you see temples in these pictures? It seems as if these stones have their own stories to narrate, isn't it? Today I shall tell you about the civilization and culture of the Rajput age. So, now this paragraph explains that Palya is a kind of epitaph. However, it is erected only for those who attend martyrdom. Martyrdom matlab shaheed ho jana. For the protection and reformation of the country. It is a symbol of sacrifice. This is a memorable stone erected as the tribute to martyrs. During this festival, palyas are worshipped and songs describing the glory of the heroes in whose the memories palyas were built are sung. Palyas play an important role in passing the culture of our country from one generation to another. This was all explained by Grandpa to the kids. Now, moving forward towards administrative system during the Rajput age. During the Rajput era, India was not ruled over by any one king. India was divided into big and small states, and the extent of each kingdom depended on the king's military prowess. You have been briefed about the Rajput kings and dynasties in the previous chapter. In this chapter, you will learn about their administrative system, literature, architecture, and external invasions during that time. Here it is said that during the Rajput era, we all had already learnt about the big and small states and their dynasties in many other ways. The first chapter taught you about two big states, and the fourth chapter taught us about many dynasties, small states getting into the dynasties. And now, in this chapter, we are going to learn about the Rajput king's administrative system, literature, architecture, and external invasions during those times. Now, moving towards one administrative system. After the 7th century, various Rajput dynasties ruled in India. However, even though different dynasties came to power, there was little change in the administrative system. Though kingship was hereditary, it was not compulsory that the eldest son would always automatically become the next king. The apparent selected by the king was called the crown prince. In some cases, even people and ministers elected or selected their king. For example, while in Kashmir, King Yashashkara was selected and enthroned by the Brahmin group. In Gujarat, Kumarpal was selected as the successor by the Council of Ministers. The ministers were appointed to assist the king to administrator and manage the kingdom effectively. Yet, at times, people became victims of poor or wrong administrative policies. Here, in this paragraph, we have learned that the succession of the throne was hereditary. The son of the king became the king. However, it was not necessary that the eldest son only become the king. The king could enthrone any son of his choice. The heir selected by the king was called the prince of the state, as it is said, crown prince, right? Then there are few exceptional cases in Rajput era where the king was selected by people or the ministers. For example, King Yashashkara of Kashmir was selected and enthroned by the group of Brahmin as said in the lines. Okay. Then, while Kumar Pala of Gujarat was enthroned by the ministers of royal court. Now, moving forward with administrative system in the villages. Village institutions were very important during the medieval period. The panchayat looked after its administration. The head of panchayat was called Mukhi or Sarpanch, and he was responsible for protecting and delivering justice to the villagers. His was the final word. Still, in many cases, the Gram Sabha would also give verdict and punish culprits. Even today, at the village level, the Gram Panchayat or the elders of the Panchayat provide guidelines to the people. At that time, the land revenue was the main income of the kingdom. Each kingdom has different ways of collecting land revenue, but usually the sixth part of the cultivation was taken by the land revenue. Apart from this, other taxes were also levied on the people. Different officers were appointed for different activities. Moreover, taxes were collected at the ports and octroi points. Landlords collected the tax and paid tribute to the kings. Now, here, children, we have learnt about the kingdom divided into different villages. These villages had their self rule institution, which played an important role in the administration of villages. These institutes were called panchayats. We have already learned last year what is panchayat, right? Who is sarpanch, right? And the other word for sarpanch is mukhi. Had its own panchayat whose head was called the mukhi or the sarpanch. The mukhi or the sarpanch, even we call it mukhya. The mukhi or sarpanch was responsible for the protection and justice of the village. His words were final verdict. Final verdict मतलब जो बोला वो पत्थर की लकीर. That was the last words. You have to follow them. However, in some cases, instead of the mukhi or sarpanch, the Gram Sabha passed judgment and punished the culprits. Punish the culprits मतलब गुनहगार को सजा दिलाना. Even today, Gram Panchayats or Mukhi exist in at the village level. विलेज लेवल पर आज भी ग्राम पंचायत होती है और मुखिया और सरपंच होते हैं. Then, in the second paragraph, we learnt about the land revenue. Land revenue was the chief source of income for the king and the kingdom. Each kingdom had its own way of deciding the amount of the revenue to be collected. However, as per the general trend, the sixth part of the revenue was generated from the crop cultivation, was collected as land revenue. It was the task of feudal lord, or we can say landlord, to collect the taxes. They gave some part of the tax to the king for the administration and of the state, while they kept remaining amount with them to maintain the army. Apart from that land revenue, people also paid few other taxes. Moreover, taxes were also collected by ports and octroi centers, as we even pay on the octroi centers, as you all know very well. Now, towards literature. During the Rajput age, there was a lot of writing as well as literature of various kinds. Scholars and education received great patronage from kings. Many literary works were composed in Sanskrit, Prakrit, Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, etc. The great Sanskrit poet Magh composed the epic Shishupala Vadya. This epic describes the killing of Shishupal by Sri Krishna. Similarly, another poet, Sri Harsh, wrote the epic Naishada Charitra, which was about the story of Nal and Damayanti. Even songs by Radha and other gopis sung in the praise of Lord Krishna were presented in a lyrical manner. The biography and achievements of the kings were also composed in a poetic manner. Hemachandracharya wrote Kumarpal Charitra based on the life of Solanki king of Gujarat Kumarpal, and a grammar book Siddhem Shabdanushashan, as the title indicates, the name of the king Siddharaj Jaisingh and Hemachandracharya are associated with these books. This book was considered so important that it was placed on an elephant during a procession in Patan. Not only poetry, but plays were also written during that time. Bhavabhuti wrote Uttaram Charitra, with Pandit Narayana composed Hitopadesh, a collection of based on Panchtantra. Either your school or a nearby library must be having books containing collection of stories or folk tales. Let's know, do a reading activity. So, here we learnt that Rajput kings were the lovers of art and literature first of all. Hence, there was a great progress of art and literature in medieval era. The king patronized scholars, academicians, and library figures. The great authors of this age composed many literary works in Sanskrit, Prakrit, Tamil, Kannada, Telugu, etc. Right? And then the great saint, Jain saint, Guru Hemachandracharya, he composed Kumarpal Charitra, which is a long poetry based work on King of Gujarat belonging to Solanki dynasty called Raja Kumarpal. Okay. Then he also wrote a grammar book called Siddhem Shabdanushashan. That means the word Siddh refers to the name of King Siddharaj Jaisingh, and the ruling king, and Hem refers to Hemachandracharya. Okay. So this book was appreciated so much that it was kept on the elephant and its procession was carried out in Patan on the honor to honor it. Okay. And then we have even learned that the great poet of medieval era, that is Magd, composed the epic of Shishupal Vad. Shishupal Vad in Sanskrit. This epic revolves around a story like killing of Shishupal by Lord Krishna. Vad means killing. Another poet of Naishada Charitra. That was the story of Nal and Damayanti. Apart from this, two classic poems were composed during the Krishna Bhakti devotion of Lord Krishna, done by Radha and Gopis. Many poems were also being written about the life of achievement of the kings. Then, along with the poems, drama also were written during that age. And the great dramatist Bhavabhuti wrote Uttaram Charitra during that era. Then Pandit Narayan composed a collection of the stories called Hita Upadesh, that was known as Hitopdesh. These stories were based on the Panchtantra stories, right? We all have heard about the Panchtantra stories also. Okay. So, ending with this paragraph. Now, next, that is about the architecture. Among the various construction during the Rajput age, temple constructions is noteworthy. The Rajput kings were fond of constructing grand and artistic buildings. The architecture and sculpture of that time is evident from the temple forts, places, lakes, etc. Among the temples, Khajuraho in Madhya Pradesh and the Puri temple of Lord Jagannath are famous for their architecture and sculpture. The Sun Temple of Konark was also built during that time. The Konark Temple was constructed with great finishing and was shaped like a chariot driven by 7 horses. Among the other sun temples of India, the Martan Temple of Kashmir and the Sun Temple of Gujarat are famous. A prominent feature of the Modhera temple is that the first rays of the sun fall directly on the idol. The Ellora caves of the Deccan have caves representing 3 religions: Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism. One among these is the Grand Kailash Temple. The Elephanta Caves near Mumbai have a beautiful 3-faced sculpture of Lord Shiva. The Meenakshi Temple at Madurai is famous all over India. The temple of South India are especially well known for their imposing gateways called Gopurams. After hearing about the fame of such grand temples, many foreign invaders came to loot them. The magnificent Somnath temple of Gujarat was attacked many times. So, here we learnt all about architecture. What are the architecture constructions during the Rajput age is that temples. Which type of temples? We have heard about the Sun Temple of Konark. That was the temple most renowned is one of the Sun Temple in Konark, that is in Orissa. The marvelous piece of art built during the Rajput age, and it was given the shape of chariot driven by 7 horses, right? And it was the brilliant temple constructed and been praised all over the world. Then the second Sun Temple was of Modhera, located in Mehsana district in Gujarat. It was excellent piece of architecture because it was built in such a way that the first rays of the sun directly fall on the idol in this temple. Apart from these two temples mentioned, Martan Temple of Kashmir is also equally famous. Many grand and famous temples of India have been built during Rajput eras. Khajuraho Temple in Madhya Pradesh, Puri Temple in Bhubaneswar of Orissa, that was also famous for the architecture and sculpture. The Meenakshi Temple of Madurai is equally famous. Like Meenakshi Temple, almost all the temples of South India have gopurams. Gopurams are grand and decorative entrance made in front of the South Indian temples, as you might have seen in South India. The grand and mythical temples of Somnath is also very famous, which was tried to loot by the foreign invaders who tried to plunder them many a times. Okay. Now we are going to learn about Muhammad Ghazni. Though the Rajput age is well known for its valor and sacrifice, it also saw the construction of many beautiful and imposing buildings. Many foreign invaders invaded India during this period. Muhammad Ghazni, the Sultan of Ghazna, attacked India many times between 1000 CE and 1025 and 26 CE. In spite of facing problems during the attacks, he continued to plunder India with full force. During one such attack, when Gujarat was under Bhimdev Solanki's rule, he plundered Somnath. Many people from Saurashtra and Gujarat joined Bhimdev Solanki and tried to protect Somnath but failed. Now, here in this paragraph, it was said that Rajput age is well known for its glorious structures and grand buildings. Rajput kings were famous for their sacrifice. The structures and buildings built during Rajput age were so artistic and minutely carved that many foreign invaders tried to loot and plunder them many a times. These invaders invaded India and tried to carry away many of their valuable precious statues and many wonderful pieces of art. One such invader was Muhammad Ghazni, the Sultan King of Ghazna. He attacked India numerous times between 1000 to 1075 AD. Each time he came to India, he was given a tough fight by Rajputs, yet somehow managed to loot and plunder our nation. Once he tried to attack Somnath temple of Gujarat. King Bhimdev Solanki was ruling king at that time. The king and his army, as well as the people of Saurashtra and Gujarat, all joined him and tried to fight against him, against Muhammad Ghazni, and yet he managed to loot Somnath. Now, that is change of power at Delhi. After the demise of Muhammad Ghazni, the leaders of Ghazna started vying for the throne. However, the Rajput kings did not take advantage of this weakness. Meanwhile, Shahabuddin Ghori established his strong rule in Ghazna and decided to attack India. His intention was not to loot but established his rule here. Initially, he wasn't successful. He could not forget his defeat by Queen Naika Devi of Anahilwad Patan and therefore did not attack India for 12 years. Finally, the second time he attacked Delhi. Prithviraj fought bravely without any prior preparation or help from the other Rajput kings. With his defeat, the Rajput rule came to an end in Delhi. As the result, Shahabuddin established his rule there and extended his kingdom. After Shahabuddin, his slave who was also his commander, that is, Kutubuddin Aibak, ascended the throne. He was known as the founder of slave dynasty. With this, Rajput rule came to an end in Delhi. This was a change in the administration and society. What kind of changes took place and why? Think about questions like this. In place of valor and sacrifice, people started conspiring against each other for power. The throne of Delhi was stained with blood. So, here we came to learn about the rule of Delhi later on. Okay, so after Muhammad Ghazni, what happened? After Muhammad Ghazni died, many leaders fought among themselves to acquire the throne of Ghazna. However, the honest Rajput kings of India did not take any advantage of this situation. They did not want to fall into conspiration and grab the power over Ghazna. Then Shahabuddin Ghori became the king of Ghazna. He was strong and ambitious ruler too. Just like Muhammad Ghazni, he also planned to attack India. However, his intention was not to loot or plunder India, but his intention was to establish his rule in India. Initially, when he attacked India, he could not succeed. Queen Naika Devi of Anilwada Patan gave a tough fight to Shahabuddin Ghori and defeated him. Ghori could not forget this defeat for a long time. Therefore, he did not attack India for 12 years after this defeat. But again, after 12 years, he attacked Delhi. Prithviraj Chauhan was the king at Delhi at that time, and he fought bravely against Ghori. Yet he was defeated because none of the Rajput kings supported him in his battle against Ghori. With this, the Rajput era came to an end in Delhi because Prithviraj Chauhan lost the battle, lost the fight. Shahabuddin Ghori became the king of Delhi then, after defeating Prithviraj Chauhan. He expanded his kingdom by conquering more and more territories. After Shahabuddin Ghori, his slave Kutubuddin Abaik became the king. His slave मतलब उसका नौकर, उसका मंत्री or whatever it is, right? Kutubuddin Abaik is considered the founder of Ghulam dynasty in India. Ghulam मतलब गुलामी करना. Thus, the Rajput era was ended and Ghulam age began in that time of India.